In a little more than 24 hours, Donald Trump will become the first ever U.S. president to stand criminal trial. And I don't think that's fazed him because he is still attacking witnesses, including his former fixer, Michael Cohen, and that's despite a gag order. Joining us now is MSNBC political analyst and senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion, Tim O'Brien. Tim knows more about the former president than most.
So Tim, it's good to have you. And as we know, the one constant in the universe is Donald Trump attacking, just fill in the blank. And he's always at it. In this upcoming trial, though, he's maintained that he didn't do anything wrong and that, I acknowledge that I gave Michael Cohen some money, but I didn't know what he was doing with it. I didn't know where he was putting it. But we had Michael Cohen on our show yesterday to talk a little bit about this upcoming trial and the fact that Donald Trump wants to make him the bad guy, the one who's actually the one who should be on trial. Let's take a listen to some of that. Trump wants to put you on trial.
Right. And somewhere along the line, somebody has to inform Donald that he's the defendant in this case. I sat in his seat a couple of years back, right, and I know what it's like. I wish that there was somebody that I could have gone ahead and blamed for everything. It's always somebody else's fault when it comes to Donald Trump. Never his. It's always somebody else's. I'm not the one on trial. He is.
Despite the deflections, the blaming, it's somebody else's fault. Donald Trump is the one who's behind, is going to be sitting in the chair tomorrow in front of while they're impaneling a jury in front of a judge. Talk a little bit about what that means for him. Despite everything else he's tried to do to avoid this moment, it's here and accountability begins.
Well, it's been very interesting, Michael, over the last 10 days or so, how this escalated frenzy to keep delaying the beginning of this case has just gone, from hotter to boiling point, because Trump doesn't want to sit where he's going to be sitting on Monday. And to me, it indicates that there might be more evidence introduced in this trial that he and his defense attorneys are aware of, that he thinks is very damning. There's already a damning fact pattern. Remember, he begins allegedly his affair with Stormy Daniels about, I think, 3 months after he has just had a son with his wife, Melania. So at a personal, familial level, it's disgusting. In terms of responding to allegations that he paid off Stormy Daniels to stop speaking about this, he's been all over the map. He originally, while he was first confronted with this, said he didn't do it. Then he acknowledged there was a payment. Then he said again that he didn't do it. And then a tape recording came out of him guiding Michael Cohen to talk to his CFO, Alan Weisselberg, about the payment. So both on a personal level and an evidentiary level, it's damning for him. And I don't think under oath in a courtroom, presented with the fact pattern, presented with documentable evidence, he's going to be able to go into the same kind of performance art that he engages with publicly when he attacks judges and I think tries to get involved with witness intimidation, as he's done over the last couple of days. And a very skilled prosecutor will be able to fillet him on the witness stand. And that's something I think his defense attorneys are probably wrestling with right now. He is a very unpredictable and unreliable witness. And I think this is going to be 4 to 6 weeks or so of I think, public shaming for him that he's not used to in a confined setting with skillful prosecutors. And I think he's very aware of that. And that explains a lot of the recent temperature around this.
To your point about performance art and the amount of pressure that he finds himself under, he has been out on the stump. I'm not going to make our listeners listen to Donald Trump this early in the morning, but he said, like all true communist show trials, this is what you call a communist show trial. And we're going communist. Don't kick yourself. Mind you, none of the syntax makes sense. We don't win this election. This country is finished. He is trying to use this. He understands now the courtroom becomes his campaign trail to ramp up his supporters.
Well, and what institution or civic process in America has Donald Trump not tried to poison? He is the most overtly racist president and candidate we've ever had. He has attacked universities, the media, and of course the courts. And in the process of that, he's trying to suggest to everyone that something is so deeply, fundamentally broken in the United States that he's the only person who can fix it. And along the way, he's being victimized for being a hero. When actually, at the end of the day, he is this tragic comic criminal, an outlaw, who I think challenges the rest of us to respond to the better angels of our nature and not succumb to the dialogue he routinely tries to introduce. And I think that that is one of his weapons, is that, like a salesman, he will constantly stay on the most horrific messages about what America is about.
You know, Tim, as we noted, as Michael noted in the intro, less than 24 hours, I think 12 hours actually and counting until this case really gets underway. But we're not going to see any witnesses take the stand on Monday or even later on this week. The start of this trial is really a jury selection. But Donald Trump will be in the courtroom for that. What are you going to be watching for on Monday, understanding that what we will glean and see from what's in that courtroom will come from readouts of the great journalists and the reporters in the room, will come from sketches. There will not be cameras in the courtroom to televise these proceedings.
Well, it might just be a little bit boring for starters. The first inning might be kind of boring, Simone, because it is jury selection. However, Trump has routinely complained that he can't get a fair hearing in New York, that he can't get a fair, collection of jurors who are going to be open-minded about the prosecution that he's facing. I think the reality is, the American judicial system with the jury in this case will rise to the occasion. And I think that once we get past some of the early machinations around this, and the trial actually begins, that's where the rubber will really meet the road. And I think the witness list is very interesting. Hope Hicks is being called as a witness. Hope Hicks, at one point early on in this episode, provided cover for Trump, either willingly or unwillingly. But she said what happened didn't happen. And it's interesting to me to watch whether or not she has had a crisis of confidence in herself, as many people in Trump's orbit often do, and wants to use this venue to come clean. I suspect Trump suspects some of that is coming.
A grim warning from former President Donald Trump, who says his people, quote, get extremely angry with what's happening. That's ahead of Monday, when for the first time in history, a former American president will stand criminal trial. Trump is accused of trying to buy the silence of a porn star, Stormy Daniels, he allegedly had an affair with. Trump denies the claims and has tried to delay the proceedings time and again. But with just days left, that tried and true, or somewhat true, strategy is running out of runway. Earlier this week, his last-ditch effort to delay failed for the third time in 3 days. This morning, we should note, the U.S. Secret Service says it is ready to go to provide protection for the former president, adding that it will, quote, not seek any special accommodations outside of what would be required to ensure the continued safety of the former president. Meantime, Trump is on a Truth Social tirade, railing against the case, the judge, and the entire system of justice in this country, crying.
The only people I know in this country who are better off today than they were 4 years ago are illegal immigrants. And that's as a result of your policy. I don't hate you for it. I don't hate anyone, but that's why you've been impeached. And my colleagues may try to cover it up. They're going to try to cover it up, but they can't cover up the facts.
I don't think that's a good argument. You've reversed, again, countless policies that were in place that were working to keep our southwest border under control, opening flood walls for this security crisis at our southern border. Again, unprecedented levels of illicit drugs and deadly fentanyl. You speak of a consequence regime, Mr. Secretary. My constituents are feeling the consequence of this regime every single day.
I don't hate anybody.